Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel Pharma Focus. I hope you guys are doing great. This video is in continuation to the ICH E2A guidelines which we have discussed earlier, and this is probably the part 3 of that. So before I begin with the video, just a quick disclaimer that this is just for the educational purposes and I'm just trying to simplify ICH E2A guidelines as per my understanding, and this is not any official regulatory advice. And also I'm not representing any regulatory authority, and this video should not be considered as an official guidance, right? So let's discuss about what we discussed in the previous videos. We have discussed about the introduction of this. We have discussed about definitions and terminologies. We have discussed about serious adverse event, adverse drug reaction, expectedness, and yes, we are going to discuss in this video from standards for expedited reporting. So for anyone who hasn't seen the previous videos, I'll be posting the link probably in the comment section for the part 1 and the part 2. So this is part 3 of the video. So let's discuss about standards for the expedited reporting. So first and the foremost thing here is what expedited reporting is. So expedited term is used for the rapid submission. Rapid submission is majorly in the cases of serious unexpected adverse drug reactions that are generally referred to as the SUSARs, right? And we have discussed about the expectedness and unexpectedness in the previous videos, but an unexpected one is the reaction whose nature or severity it is not in consistency with the product information, such as the investigator brochure that we have. So in this particular video we are going to discuss in detail about this. So let's begin with the first thing. So the first part is what should be reported. First, single cases of serious unexpected ADR. So we know that both serious and unexpected cases. Unexpected, the ones which are not in reference to the product information, the investigator brochure in such cases, right? So these are the unexpected cases and they are subjected to the expedited reporting, that is the rapid submission. Second point that we have here is that this applies to the reports from spontaneous sources and from any type of clinical or epidemiological investigation independent of the design or the purpose. So be it whatever the design or the purpose of that investigation is, it can be a clinical or epidemiological investigation. This criteria, it applies to all the reports from the spontaneous sources and from any kind of such investigations. We have third point here, which is it also applies to the cases that are not directly reported to a sponsor or manufacturer. For example, those found in the regulatory authority generated ADR registries or in publications. And the source of a report, it should always be specified. So the case is not directly reported to sponsor or manufacturer. So when we talk about the clinical investigation cases, we have sponsors. Sponsors are majorly the ones who are running or funding the study. This can be any company, it can be any organization, institution that initiates or manages or finances a clinical study of a drug or a medicinal product, and it is responsible majorly for ensuring that the study it follows regulations and reporting of the safety data is done. And manufacturer, on the other hand, is the company that actually makes or produces the drug. So we will be discussing about the details of the sponsor, investigator, manufacturer and these points in the coming videos. In the next part probably, where we are going to talk about managing of the double-blinded therapy cases. So up till now we have three major points here. Both serious and unexpected are expedited reporting, any reports from any kind of spontaneous clinical and epidemiological investigation independent of the design and the purpose. And third point is the cases that are not directly reported to the sponsor or the manufacturer. So these are the cases that are subject to the expedited reporting. Next part that we have here is this paragraph. It states that what is not subjected to expedited reporting. So the very first one is, although the adverse reaction is serious, but it is expected. Therefore, it is not meant to be done as a rapid reporting because it is something which is already expected, right? Second point is, it is also inappropriate for the serious events from clinical investigations that are not considered related to the study product. So, any adverse event that is, maybe it can be serious, it can be non-serious, but if it is not considered as related to the study product, then it is not subjected to the expedited reporting. Then we again have the simple thing, which is the non-serious adverse reactions. So these do not require any kind of rapid reporting, and these can be whether it can be expected or not, right? So we have third point here, which is information obtained by a sponsor or manufacturer on serious unexpected reports from any source should be submitted on an expedited basis to appropriate regulatory authorities if minimum criteria for the expedited reporting can be met. So we talk about the minimum criteria of expedited reporting. Again, we have the 4 minimum valid criteria factors here, which is identifiable reporter, a single identifiable patient, suspect medicinal product, and a serious adverse event. So this is they are talking about if we have all of the 4 criteria, right, and we have serious unexpected reports, then they should be submitted on the expedited basis. So this is particularly in relation to the sponsor or the manufacturer. If they receive any kind of such information and there are 4 criteria, validity criteria that we have, then we do need to submit it on expedited basis. Alright, so the next paragraph here, which is the causality assessment paragraph, this is majorly about okay, let's get to the first point, which is causality assessment is required for clinical investigation cases. So what these clinical investigation cases are, these are the documented reports of adverse events or adverse reactions during the clinical trials, right? That is what we are talking about. The guidelines, they're about the clinical trials, they are about the study product. So all the cases, they should be judged either by the reporting healthcare professional or by the sponsor as having a reasonable suspected causal relationship to the medicinal product qualifies as ADRs. So what they're trying to mention here is that in any clinical trial, every adverse event, they must be assessed to see if it is caused by the drug or not. So this can be done either by the doctor, right, the reporting healthcare professional, or the sponsor, that is the company that is conducting the trials. And if there is a belief that there is reasonable possibility that the drug caused the event, then it is adverse drug reaction. That is what they have stated, that it qualifies as adverse drug reaction. So for the purposes of reporting, adverse event reports associated with the marketed drugs usually imply causality. Then we have these various terms, right, which describe the degree of causality between medicinal product and event. So we have various terms like these: certainly, definitely, probably, possibly, likely, related, or not related. So we have various scales, we have various methods to do the causality assessment, which is a kind of a different topic, so I'll be covering it in a separate video someday. But these are some of the things, some of the words that are used to describe the causality assessment. The belief that there is a reasonable possibility that the drug caused the event. So why do we use these terms is we need to specify that how strongly a drug is linked to the event, right? So that is why these terms, they are used. And phrases such as plausible relationship, suspected causality, causal relationship cannot be ruled out are also invoked to describe the cause and effect sometimes. However, there is currently no standard international nomenclature. The expression reasonable causal relationship is meant to convey in general that there are facts and evidence or arguments to suggest a causal relationship. So the last line here means that when it is mentioned reasonable causal relationship, reasonable, which means we have a reason. That is, we have facts, we have evidences or arguments to suggest a causal relationship. A causal relationship. A causal relationship is what? That the drug has actually caused that event. So this is what this part means, right? Next, we have other observations, which is there are situations in the addition to single case reports of serious adverse events of reaction that may necessitate rapid communication to regulatory authorities. Appropriate medical and scientific judgment should be applied for each situation. So these are some of the situations which are additionally mentioned here. Wherein we have first point here, which is mentioned in general information that might materially influence the benefit risk assessment of a medicinal product, or that would be sufficient to consider the changes in medicinal product administration or overall conduct of a clinical investigation. It represents such situations. So we have 3 points mentioned here, which I'll discuss later, but for now let's discuss about this, which is first part. We have that any information that is influencing the benefit risk assessment of a medicinal product. That means, so for the benefit risk assessment of a medicinal product, it is something that a medicinal product, its benefits, it should always outweigh the risks associated with it, right? So we are trying to assess here any information that leads to the benefit risk assessment changes, or that is changing the medicinal product administration, or in short it is changing the overall conduct of a clinical investigation. Then it has to be considered and it has to be looked for the rapid communication to regulatory authorities. That means it should be on the urgent basis. Just as the other cases, on the urgent basis, it should be submitted to the regulatory authorities. So we have 3 examples here. The very first one is we have an expected serious ADR, an increase in the rate of the occurrence which is judged to be clinically important. So let's say what this exactly means is that there is an increase in the known expected serious ADR. Even if the ADR is known, it starts happening more frequently, right? There is an increase in the rate of the occurrence. That means it is happening more frequently than it was expected. Therefore, it is becoming clinically important now, and it has to be submitted or reported quickly, rapidly. Another situation is a significant hazard to the patient population, such as lack of efficacy with the medicinal product used in the treating of life-threatening disease. So lack of efficacy is we have a medicinal product and it is intended to perform a particular therapeutic effect in a patient when a doctor or when anyone, a pharmacist, is prescribing that particular drug. If the intended effect is not achieved, and there are many more criteria under lack of efficacy as well, but for now a general overview about what a lack of efficacy is. So LOE in the serious conditions, like the drug, it was used for the life-threatening disease, let's say, and it does not work as it was expected to work. So definitely it is supposed to be as a serious risk to the patients, right? So this has to be reported rapidly. Then we have a major safety finding from a newly completed animal study, such as carcinogenicity. So this is new safety finding from any animal studies. It can show any kind of major risk associated with it, just as here it is mentioned, such as carcinogenicity, right? So this has to be reported rapidly. It is subject to the expedited reporting here. So I think I'll be covering the reporting time frames in the next video, because this is going to be bigger one then. So yeah, that's all for this video. I hope I was clear enough. If you guys have any questions, do drop in the comment section. And thank you for watching.